Aloha, everybody. Welcome to our channel, Scientology, Peeling the Onion, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Janis Gillham. Grady, how you doing, Janis?
G'day, everybody, and my co-host is Mark Fisher.
That's right.
Normally you say who you are.
Oh, did I not say that? Okay,
No.
Well, there we go. So I said who you are, and you said who I am. That's okay.
That's right. That's right. We've got this
Anyway.
down.
Yeah, we've done quite a few of these, actually. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so why don't you tell everybody who we have here today and what we're going to cover?
Okay, who we have today is a returning guest. We've done several with her already about the old Apollo days. And today we're going to continue with some Apollo days, and then we're going to move over to Clearwater. So let's welcome Sandy Holeman.
Hi, Sandy. How you doing?
Good. Good to see you both.
Good to see you too.
You look good.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we were going to cover from basically, you had another story you wanted to tell about being on the flagship Apollo, and then we're going to move on from there to Clearwater, and we'll carry on from there.
Great. So one thing I wanted to cover that I haven't heard covered about the Apollo was the multinationality of the crew. You know, I had never left California before I went to the Apollo. But on the Apollo, I met people from England, Scotland, Ireland, Denmark, Sweden, Holland, South Africa, Canada. There were a couple of locals. There was one guy on the ship from Morocco.
Did you mention Australia?
No, Australia and New Zealand. Yeah. So a benefit for me of that was I learned how to, it sounds silly, but later in my career, it was very beneficial for me to know how different last names were spelled, no matter where they came from. I learned all these different accents. Everybody spoke English, but it was just interesting to meet all these people from all these different countries, and that was a plus. And I hadn't heard anyone mention that before, but I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, we also, good point. And we also had Germany and France and Spain and Italians and Greeks and Yugoslavian, and the Czechoslovakians.
I didn't know that. They must have been before my time. Oh, there's Sandy now.
Yeah.
I'm just rolling through pictures just to remind people of what the ship was like and the people you were with. Go ahead.
Well, there's Jim Jackson with the leaning in on the right with the glasses in the front of the picture. And I just saw Jim when I was in Clearwater 3 weeks ago. He came and had dinner with me in downtown Clearwater. So that's nice to see a young picture of him.
Does he live in Florida now?
Yeah, he lives in Clearwater.
Oh, interesting.
And he's still doing his accounting and helping. He's a tax attorney as well, so he helps people with their taxes. He lost a lot of business when he got declared, but he's rebuilt it again with a lot of non-Scientology public, so he's doing all right.
Good.
Yeah. But back on the international thing, actually, I remember on the ship when Hubbard was working on word clearing and misunderstood words, his steward was Scottish, and she actually didn't have a very good vocabulary anyway. And he also had one who was Swedish, and he would work with them on clearing words, and from talking with them and the difficulty they had in learning English or the reading of English, which is harder than them learning to speak it.
Sure.
So he worked with them and, wrote different policies or bulletins based off of what he got dealing with the international crew that we had.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we were moving moving on to leaving the ship and moving to Clearwater.
Yeah.
There were 3 groups. There was the group that went to Daytona, which were going to continue to deliver Scientology services. There was the group that went to New York, who was going to continue the international management of Scientology. And then there was the small group left on the ship to clean it up. I can't remember if we talked about this because I've talked about it with somebody else before. But
Yeah.
Well, we talked a little bit about it, but go ahead. Yeah, you basically were in the group that left behind to clean out the ship, right?
right. And we had to do it section by section. We'd clean it completely. Then we'd scatter around boric acid for any roaches that might be left in that area, and then tape it off, and then move on to another section until
Now,
the whole
where was the ship at the time when they were unloading it and all? What was it, in the Caribbean, or where was it?
Yes. It was either in or near the Bahamas.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought it was in Nassau or out at Anchor in Freeport.
Yeah, which is the Bahamas. Yeah.
How dirty was the ship when they moved stuff out? Was it like somebody's house, like when you move your furniture out and all of a sudden, oh my God,
Well,
look at all this
some of it
dirt?
was, yes, some of it,
Yeah.
but some of it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Most of the crew were used to the drill of, clean ship and keeping their cabins clean because of inspections, white gloves. So they weren't the type to leave scraps of trash laying around in their cabins. They would have packed their things up and then cleaned behind them before they're like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Sandy, do you remember what it was like? Like, did you walk around the ship after it was empty before you left for the last time?
Yeah, it was weird. It was very
ghost
strange.
ship.
Yeah, very strange.
Did you ever go into like LRH's, research room because you hadn't been in there, or other places you'd never been in before?
No, I must not have been on the part. That was probably somebody above me who got to clean that area out.
I see.
I didn't go there. But anyway, there was a time before we got the word that we were going to move, where 3 of us were passing along rumors that we'd heard. There was Janis and me and Gabby. Do you remember this, Janis?
No, because I wasn't on the ship at that time.
No, this is
before
we left. Yeah.
Because I know Annie.
We were hearing rumors about, we're gonna go to land. We're gonna sell the ship. And we didn't know what was gonna happen because it was all super hush hush. But each of us was hearing a little scrap here and there, and we would share our little scraps of information with each other. And then we got busted for that.
It must have been I know Annie got in trouble for telling Charlie, but I was on mission when that was all decided. No. I was at AOLA.
I have a distinct memory, Janis.
Well,
maybe
okay.
When we were, I can't tell you where we were, but I definitely remember that you.
All right. I don't remember it.
Yeah.
I remember Gabby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Janis, were you surprised, Janis, when you found out you were on mission that you guys were moving off the ship? Were you surprised?
Yeah, I was, because I came back thinking I was going back to the ship, and instead I'm directed from New York down to Daytona, and I'm like, well, what about all my belongings that are on the ship? And someone else had been assigned to pack all my stuff up, and I ended up missing a lot of things.
So did they tell you in New York, oh, by the way, we're moving up on land and you're going to Daytona? Is that how you found out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead I went to New York expecting to go back down to the Caribbean, and I ended up going to Daytona.
Ah. Yeah, we covered the Daytona period, Janis, in the Messenger series, right?
Yeah, we did. But I don't remember that, Sandy, maybe, but...
So when we went, once we had finished cleaning the ship, we went to Clearwater, and the same crew was tasked with cleaning the Clearwater building, which was a mess. It had not been occupied for 2 years after the bank employees had moved out, and there was trash and garbage and dust, and It was nasty.
I remember that building very well.
Well, I did the space planning mission. So that was David Mayo, Hannah, and myself. So we were there before everyone moved in, even before escrow closed, to do the space planning. I remember the place needing to be cleaned up. And the Fort Harrison still had some public in it. And that was also a mess.
Yeah, so they had new recruits cleaning the Fort Harrison. I didn't work on that. I just worked on the Clearwater building, which was supposed to be offices for Mary Sue and LRH and Ken Urquhart, LRH's personal communicator. And so these were executive offices of the highest order. So we were very restricted in what cleaning supplies we could use, as I'm sure.
Now I remember that. Was that the portion of the bank? It must have been left over from the bank executives, because I remember those offices, because the aides were up there when I was there, and PersCom, Ken Urquhart, and they were like dark wood and really, really plush offices up on the upper floor. It wasn't on the ground floor, right?
That's correct.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Now, you know, when people were moving from the ship, all the Americans were left on the ship, and it was the non-Americans who were shipped to Daytona, along with the Americans or the auditors, even if they're American or non-American, so that they could deliver. But anyone who was American stayed, unless they're an auditor. Otherwise, the non-Americans apparently all went, and they were saying they had a shore story of saying that their ship was being renovated and they were coming into the U.S. on vacation while the ship's under renovation. And that's how they all lied their way through immigration.
Right.
Sandy, do you remember when you first arrived at the Fort Harrison and in Clearwater, and what you thought? What were your impressions?
Yeah. We each got our own room in the Fort Harrison Hotel. These were expansive, with our own bathroom. I mean, this was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember being, well, first of all, you know, we all have sea legs from being on the ship. And so when you're on land after being on a ship, the land feels like it's moving. And it's a strange sensation. You know, we didn't have much time to get past that before we were working, I don't remember how many hours a day, cleaning. And you were talking about these offices being on the upper level. We had to run up and down the stairs. And I was running up and down the stairs probably 20 times a day in that period. And when at the end of the workday, I would just flop down on my bed, fully clothed, and pass out and go to sleep until the next morning when it would start over again. And my whole body hurt from the intense physical exercise that I was getting. And I kept thinking, you know, well, I'm back in the United States and I'm on land. I could leave.
Oh.
I could blow. And wouldn't that be sweet? Only Roger, my husband, was in New York.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's us at the Fort Harrison after everybody came and joined us. But anyway, yeah. So you know, that was the reason I stayed. Actually, was Roger wasn't with me. Because you know, I pretty much always in the back of my mind was, someday I'm going to get out of here. And, you know, it was in the back of my mind because there wasn't time to think about it day in and day out. But when there was time, in those rare occasions when I had time to think, it was like, do I really want to be here? I think I want to live in a house and have kids and have a station wagon and a dog. And, you know, I kind of always wanted to have a normal life.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
But living in a hotel room was definitely an upgrade from
huge. And there were TVs,
from the ship.
There were televisions in each room.
TVs.
I was going to say, you could finally see television. How about, would you guys swim in the pool? I know there was a pool back there.
Yes.
In the early days before any of the public came. Once the public arrived, we weren't allowed in the pool.
Oh, you weren't? I did. when
No.
I'd go visit. Oh,
No.
and there was shuffleboard.
Say
Some
what?
of the crew played. There was the shuffleboard. Some of the crew played shuffleboard.
Oh, I don't remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, these messengers, they had all the privileges, Sandy.
really. Wait a
You
minute, you
just
were a
don't ask.
messenger too.
You don't ask. You just do.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, it's the vending machines. Do you remember in the breezeway, those vending machines? I remember no one was handling them. And so the engineers, the old snipes from the ship, were like, hey, and they started stocking them up and making money off of it. And then Hubbard, of course, finds out about it and takes it away and makes Treasury take over stocking the machines and taking the money.
Yeah, you know, we weren't allowed to make any extra money on the ship. I was the ship's barber, and I had said earlier we were making $11.45 a week in whatever currency of country we were in. And when we went to the land base, we started making $25 a week, and so I increased my price from $2 haircut to a $5 haircut, and I cut, I don't know how many people's hair. I mean, mostly men. Right. And I did beards and I did haircuts, and I was all self-taught. But later, when something came out that no one was allowed to moonlight making extra money, they made me stop giving haircuts, which was stupid because then the crew had to go to a regular barber who cost way more money than I was charging.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was your own time anyway that you did it.
We would do it during dinner time or lunchtime. Yeah. It was. I petitioned to be allowed to continue, but it was denied. Anyway,
crazy.
So then, what was your first job after you cleaned the space and all that? So
because we had been on the audit project on the ship, Wendell and Ellen Reynolds and Peter Gillham Jr. and I were all assigned to the finance bureau of the New Flag Guardian office.
Right. Now, let me just to refresh everybody's memory. When you say audits project, that's actual accounting, the tax for tax purposes audit. It's not auditing public and PCs. It was for the taxes and finances.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so our first, Sandy, my brother was living at the extension at King Arthur's Court with Doreen. So did he go in every day to work with you guys?
He must have initially, but he wasn't there long.
No, because then he went to
it was just the three of us after Peter. Yeah, okay. Peter didn't stay long. But the first project that we had, we were assigned by Mary Sue to, I think we were the ones that came up with what was the new allowance amount going to be based on what were the costs locally.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a very vague memory of it because we weren't getting any sleep. It was the first time I had to stay up for 4 days straight with no sleep at all. And and so it's kind of blurry what happened during that time. I do remember, getting 5-minute cat naps at my desk, just you get to the point where you're hallucinating and you can't see the numbers in front of you at all. And you just kind of like pass out for 5 minutes.
Where were your offices? Were they in the Clearwater building?
Yes, they were. Yep.
Yeah. I just remember the building because I used to work in external comm. I just remember Treasury, Homer Schomer, and Tom Brunell, and they were all on one floor because they had a vault. Bob Harvey was the payroll officer, and we used to have to go stand in line on Saturday afternoons to get our pay each week, which was a treat because then you'd go to the store and you'd spend some money.
You go to the bakery next door.
That's right. Yeah, or the little.
The other way.
Stories.
There's a place that had great protein drinks or whatever they were.
It was a health food store down the block.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But I'll never forget getting paid because we were paid $17.20 back when I was there, and
That's
you got
right.
an invoice
Initially.
with $17 stapled to it and two
And
dimes,
2 dimes.
two dimes taped to the invoice.
And
Oh boy.
yeah, that was the initial pay. Yes, you're right. You're
Why
right.
didn't they just round it down to 17 or up to 18? That's so stupid.
Really lame.
Anyway.
Yeah. So so then they brought in someone from LA to be the flag guardian, assistant guardian for flag. And
Kathy?
No, it was before Kathy. There was
Oh,
another one.
Jackie Ritchie.
Yes,
Came from Hawaii, her and Tom.
that's right. That's right.
Yes.
And she was wacko. They got rid of her. Yeah, they got rid of her after enough people in the Flag Geo complained about her. They came in and brought in Kathy O'Gorman.
Okay.
I remember Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mary Sue never was in Clearwater. She was in Dunedin and then immediately left, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember, though, LRH and Mary Sue having some meetings at King Arthur's Court where at first I remember Tom and Jackie Ritchie coming, and I think Joe Lisa for the briefings, and they all had their own, and messengers were shut out. We weren't allowed in there. So who knows what was being discussed. But Hubbard would come out and make snide comments about the mayor, Gabe Cazares. And then later on, once Jackie got removed, then Kathy O'Gorman came to those meetings. But very briefly, I think only one that she got to go to because Hubbard then took off to Washington, D.C.
How would they transport people, Janis, from the Fort Harrison to King Arthur's Court and maintain confidentiality? Would they blindfold the people, or what did they do?
No, there wasn't people actually went to the Fort Harrison from King Arthur's Court. The other people never really came out except for those Guardian's office people. But we had 2 vans that would take people back and forth and take any communications. And one was called the green ball and one was called the red ball. And they had a red or a green ball on the antenna. One went in the morning and one went at night, that type of thing. But so all the traffic, if you look at old traffic, you might see something referring to the green ball or the red ball. And
I remember that now. Now, Sandy, you as a crew member, would you have known that Hubbard and Mary Sue were in Dunedin, or was that?
I had no idea where they were.
Right.
No idea.
Right.
It was only 15 minutes away. What?
In a secret location.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they were supposed to go in
Daytona, just like where they were in Daytona. Oh, there are 2 condos down.
Yeah. But they were supposed to go to the penthouse. And as Sandy said, they had offices allocated them in the Clearwater building. But when we moved ashore, the GO, the Guardian's office, wanted to make sure everything was okay before Hubbard put himself up in the penthouse. And that's when at last minute it was quickly rent a place. And that's when we ended up with King Arthur's Court.
Right.
Diana Hubbard ended up living in the penthouse.
Yeah.
Right. When she got pregnant with Roanne, that's when it was like, okay, let Diana have the penthouse.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing that happened when we went land-based was everybody got pregnant.
Baby boom.
You're not allowed to have children or get pregnant on the ship. If you got pregnant, you got shipped somewhere else. And so once we hit the land base, man, there was a baby boom like you wouldn't believe. And they bought a building, a whole nother building for families. It was a Quality Inn motel.
Yeah, I was there when they bought that. Yeah.
About 8 miles away. And they took the whole back wing of that motel and converted it to a nursery for the babies and the children. And Mary Sue made sure that all of the laws were followed regarding how many nannies per child, depending on the age of the child. And it was clean. They ripped out all the wall-to-wall carpeting in all those rooms and laid in clean linoleum. It was actually a really nice facility for the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Because I remember the nursery, we allocated a back section of the cabanas of the Fort Harrison.
Yeah,
But
there was
yeah,
in
with
the
the
garage.
baby boom,
The
with that
garage,
baby
the cabana.
boom, it was like, nope, not enough room. So
That's
yeah,
right.
the Quality Inn was purchased off of the I-19, I think it was.
Yeah. I was there for all that. I was the LRH communicator for Estates at that time, and the nursery was overcrowded in the cabanas. Joanna Attlee was the nursery in charge,
Right.
and Glenn Samuel's sister, I forget her name, Lauren. She
Yeah,
was like
Lauren
the deputy
Samuels.
nanny in charge. But yeah, then they bought the Quality Inn, and they renovated it, and then they made it into the nursery. And they had to have so many nannies per kid, and that's what they had to follow the law. But anyway,
It was totally different from the pack. The pack nursery was a disaster. It was horrible, filthy. Well, you've heard. I'm sure everyone's heard the stories.
Yeah.
So my son never had to endure that, and I wouldn't have allowed it. Actually, I would have left before I put him in that nursery. But
so you were part of the baby boom at that time.
I was part of the baby boom, although I had trouble getting pregnant. Turned out I had been forced to go on the birth control pill on the ship, and the birth control pills were kind of new in those early years, and they didn't really know how they worked all that well. And I never started ovulating again after I went off the pill, and I had to go to a gynecologist and take the fertility pill to get pregnant. When I first had my child, though, the cabana at the Fort Harrison was still in operation, because I used to go there like 3 or 4 times a day and breastfeed my baby until he was 3 months old. And then they bought the Quality Inn, and at that point, he had to go onto the LRH formula for babies, which is a disaster.
Yeah, the barley.
Yeah, the barley formula with all that syrup.
It's horrible, horrible. To this day, my son is addicted to sugar. Yeah, and he's in his 40s. Yeah.
The Cairo syrup, that's what it was.
Cairo syrup, raw barley liquid, and I don't remember.
Milk. There was a milk in there. There was milk in it.
Oh, I don't know. It was terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah.
So,
But now, you were allowed, the medical officer would let you go to see a gynecologist to help you get pregnant?
Well,
that's so different to everyone else.
Absolutely, because I was in the Guardian office. We also had company bought vitamins that we were dispensed that we could take every day. We got special treatment in the Guardian office. That was why I was in the Guardian office. I wanted that special treatment, and we got it.
You know, having worked with Hubbard and Mary Sue, when Hubbard would be gone and Mary Sue would take over running, she was so good. She'd lighten the schedule. She'd give us longer meal times, you know, making sure the crew had different things. And then Hubbard would come back and it all tighten up again and change.
Yep. And we got a day off every week instead of a day off every other week. And that was really great once I had my child.
I was going to say there was resentment towards, you were right. The Guardian's office had more privileges than regular crew.
Yeah.
And there was some resentment regarding that.
Well,
you know
sure. But, you know, I was like, I didn't care. You can resent me all you want. I'm enjoying these privileges.
See, and that was more privileges than messengers had.
My dog's barking. 1 second.
Yeah, so the Guardian's office had more privileges than the messengers, Sandy.
Is that right? Yeah.
Wasn't the Guardian, Janis, the Guardian's office didn't have to be Sea Org members either, did they?
No,
they
didn't.
Join the Guardian's office and you did not have to sign a Sea Org contract.
At Flag, you had to be a Sea Org member.
Right, but there were people like USGO and Jane Kember. I think some of these people in the UK,
worldwide in
they
US.
were not Sea Org members.
No.
Yeah.
No.
no. It was only at Flag that you had to be a Sea Org member and to be in the Guardian office. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was on the ship. It was maybe 4 or 5 people, and then once we moved ashore, it just kept growing and growing and growing.
Yeah. So, so one of the interesting things in the Guardian office during that time was when the raid happened. Was that 76, Janis, or 79?
77, July 77.
Okay.
Talking about the FBI raid in California and Washington, D.C.
Right. The biggest raid in FBI history.
Yeah.
It came with battering rams and battered in the doors at the Los Angeles Guardian office and discovered all kinds of crimes that had been committed. And at that point, everyone in the Guardian office in the world started a new project called the Vetting Project, where we had to go through all of our filing cabinets, which were extensive. Everything was on paper in those days. There was no electronic communication. Every single filing cabinet, every single communication, and read the whole thing and take a little X-Acto knife and cut out Mary Sue's name or Ron Hubbard's name or any other executives, and so you ended up with with these dispatches that were all holy. There was holes everywhere in them.
It's like instead of the Freedom of Information Act where you get the things and everything's blacked out, in Scientology everything was cut out.
X-Actoed out, yeah.
Then they took all those little teeny bits of paper and they put them in bags and they shredded them, and then they took the shredding to a giant incinerator in Tampa and burned all these bags. I mean, it was, and of course there was never another raid, so it was all unnecessary, but
exactly. But that reminds me when we were at Winter Headquarters, when that happened and Hubbard took off to Sparks, we had to go through everything there, and it got to a point, some of it was ridiculous, but we ended up putting it all in different folders and putting them in plastic bags and going out to another property that we owned and digging a hole and burying everything. And then it's like, oh no, they're asking for this folder. And so then I remember at nighttime, it was pouring with rain and we're out there digging, trying to find our big garbage bags full of papers and dragging it over to under some sort of a shelter in order to find the paper and then dragging the bags back and reburying them. Oh, it was a nightmare.
Crazy.
But it just shows the insanity of the raid's already happened. What are you going to do now? You know?
Yeah. It's like closing the barn door after the horse gets out, right?
Yes.
What was it like, Sandy? You were in the Guardian's office after that raid. Did it electrify everybody in there, or what was it like? What was the mood like?
Well, initially it was stark terror. We were terrified. Oh, they're going to raid here next. Oh my God, we got to get this done, and it was crazy. It was just crazy. And then after time went on and they, arrested people, and there was the whole defense thing was set up where we were collecting. I was working with, I can't remember his name, Fred.
Fred Hewlin.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Jewish
Fred
with
Hewlin.
curly hair.
Yes.
Yeah, Fred Gillham with glasses. Yeah.
Yeah.
And glasses. Yeah. So he was in charge of. Was it the United Defense Fund or Legal Defense?
Safe
Environment Fund.
No, I told stories about this that they used to collect when we were getting our $17.20 for pay. It was like, please donate to the Safe Environment Fund. We're already putting in X number of hours a week in the Sea Org, and then they want to take whatever we have left to defend Mary Sue and the criminals and the Guardians.
There were specific orders not to allow that on the organization lines.
Right. But they did go and collect from FCCIs as well. They got donations from the
Right.
flag public. But I think it had to be, in certain places, like at the swimming pool, or, you couldn't get them when they're on their way to session or something,
Right,
but
right. Yeah, they were not allowed to be doing it within the buildings and the public that are there doing services.
yeah.
Yeah, it had to be
Well,
off the line.
and then Sandy, I don't know if you know this, but that was the forerunner to the International Association of Scientologists, because I was there for the meetings when that was created. And the attorney said, the Safe Environment Fund never had a refund or repayment request. And this is an idea that we think we should set up this IAS, International Association of Scientologists, where they can donate money and we'll park it overseas and it will be untouchable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but those were actual donations. They weren't payment for service.
No, exactly. That's what he said, though. But
So,
it's like there was no refund, repayments, or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and also they were, legitimately untaxable, unlike the payments for service, which
was a payment for service, which is an exchange.
Yeah, but hang on.
Right,
Payments for services were supposed to be labeled as donations.
Oh, they were all labeled as donations, but that was baloney.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there was a set price, but it was supposed to be a donation of that set price.
Right.
Just a donation, and don't you pay a penny less.
That's right.
It was all facade. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting thing in the Guardian office, and then
Yeah, when you were in the Guardian's office, were you aware of the criminal activities that like Joe Lisa was doing, or that Merle Veneer was doing, or the undercover people put into the Clearwater Sun?
Absolutely
or the mayor's
not.
office?
We were in finance, so we were handling records. We were doing bookkeeping basically. Now, the head of the finance bureau was Wendell. Whether or not he was briefed on any of that stuff, I don't know. I know I had no clue. The door to the intelligence bureau, B1, where Joe Lisa and
Tom Ritchie, and Chuck All,
and Alvarez. What was his first name? It was a fake name anyway. He married Molly.
Yeah.
Molly Baxter?
No, Molly Gillham.
Yeah, right.
Alvarez. I know it.
Yeah. Anyway, those guys were behind a door that was never open, and no one was allowed to go into that office at all. None of us, certainly. The assistant guardian could go in there, but none of the rest of us. PR couldn't go in there. Legal couldn't go in there. Dawn. Yes. Good. Yeah. So, no, I had no idea. I do remember one meeting we had a weekly meeting in the assistant guardian's office where all the flag geo would gather and sit around and talk about the week. And I remember something about Tom Ritchie bragging about nailing Gabe Cazares, and which turned out that it was the fake hit and run that they ran on the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, he gave no details, and I did not know what they were talking about. But I remember that the assistant guardian, Kathy O'Gorman, and all the guys at B1 were all smirking and, we got him, but I didn't know what they had done.
Yeah, and B1, just for our viewers, that's the investigation. That basically the dirty tricks, PI, spying, infiltrating. That was that whole bureau that they did. That now OSA continues to this day, the same type of thing.
Right. Yeah. Only back then they didn't hire outside PIs.
No, they use Scientologists.
They use SEAL members mostly. Yeah.
They were guest members, guardians, assistant staff, or something like that. Guest.
Actually, one of the people who helped a lot, not B1 but PR, was Tori. She was Tori Bazazian.
Tori Chrisman.
Yeah.
I've
talked to her about that. I said, I remember hearing about you when I was in the Guardian opposite flag, and she was their hero because she was doing all kinds of good work for Scientology back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
going to be talking to Tori. She's already agreed to come on. I just have to get her worked into our schedule.
She's great. She's great.
Yeah, she is. She's a good friend.
Yeah.
So were you in the Guardian's office the whole time you were in Clearwater? Is that what you did?
No. I went into the RPF while I was in the Guardian office.
That was going to be my next question. Were you ever in the RPF?
Yeah, for the List One Rock Slam project.
Right.
Where half the crew went into the RPF, and it wasn't until LRH said, "Wait a minute, where's all my execs? Where's all my staff? Oh, they're in the RPF, sir." You know, and that's when.
Well,
yeah,
it was actually Kimma. It was actually Kimma who pointed it out to LRH, saying something is wrong here. That there's so many crew and executives that are suddenly rock slamming and suppressive persons when per his policy it should only be 2%. Why are we at 50%?
Right.
Yeah,
and that's when he decided to investigate it. But it was Kimma who pointed it out to him.
Yeah, and for the public watching, rock slamming is when it's a needle reaction, which basically indicates you have an evil intention or evil purpose. And if it's a List One, that means you have an evil intention, evil purpose towards Hubbard or Scientology or Mary Sue or something Scientology related. And we've embraced that here at our channel. At our merchandise store, you can get a Rock Slammer t-shirt. We have the men's version on the left and the female version on the right. So you can be a rock slammer if you want. You just go to our merchandise store, click on it, and you can order it. They come in various colors. And like I said, the male or the females could wear the one on the left as well. But anyway, so yeah, we just decided we would just sort of take that on. And
I tell people to rock slam the like button.
Right.
Yeah. So I found out I was pregnant just before I went to the RPF.
Oh, okay.
And so I got special treatment in the RPF too. I didn't have to run everywhere like everyone else. And I didn't have to lift anything heavy or do any strenuous manual labor. You know, and I don't remember. I don't remember that I ate slop. I don't remember if I had a special diet. I don't remember. But you know, as a lot of people have said, the RPF wasn't bad compared to regular work on staff in the Sea Org, because you got your 8 hours of sleep every night, or at least 7. You had like 5 hours of personal enhancement time, either study or auditing, and then the rest of the time you were running around doing manual labor, you know, cleaning up shit, you know. But and you couldn't talk to anybody unless they talked to you, and you know, I know everybody knows about the RPF, but it was while I was in the RPF that Frankie Friedman came and made an announcement. Anybody who wants to leave the Sea Org, you can leave. There will be no freeloader bill. There will be no punishment. We just want to get rid of anybody who doesn't want to be here, and you're free to go. And I looked at Roger and I said, "Let's go."
Was he in the RPF with you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He went long before I did for something else. He didn't go for his dirty needle.
Rock slamming, yeah.
Yeah. So he said, "No way. What are you, crazy? I'm never leaving this place." Yeah. It was a non-starter for him. So, and I thought about it, and I thought, you know, I'm pregnant. I don't have any particular job skills. I couldn't leave by myself. I was 27 years old. I had no formal education. I mean, other than, you know, high school, etc. So I stayed, and when I came out, Roger came out of the RPF. They were starting. Well, first Roger went into WISE. He was the first executive director of World Institute of Scientology Enterprises.
Right.
And he got that actually off the ground. He got it going.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows what that was Hubbard, decided to set up this organization because he felt that Scientologists were basically making money off of all of his research and his administrative technology and his this and his that. So basically, he wanted to corral them all up so that they paid him, meaning the church, wise, that a portion. Just like the Godfather in the mob.
Yeah.
It's like, I need
It
my
was,
taste, and so
yeah.
that's what the Wise was set up to do.
Right.
It was a total money grab. That's all it was.
Yep.
Just grab any more money that they can.
Yep. So Roger's job was to sign up as many people as he could into this new organization, and it was, and one of the first people he got signed up was Larry Wallersheim.
Oh,
You know how that worked out.
Yeah.
Actually did, yeah.
Yeah. So then, because he was so successful running Wise, they then set up Scientology Missions International, which was the beginning of the end of the Guardian Office. And Roger was assigned to be the executive director of Scientology Missions International, called SMI, S-M-I. And a command team was set up with Roger as the, I don't remember what the titles were, the president, and I was the chief financial officer. And then our other two missionaries with us were Ed and Marilyn Brewer.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And Ed, I don't remember what Ed's job was. Marilyn was like the kind of like HR. She was in charge of recruitment and taking care of the employees and so on. So Ed was always, Ed had been raised pretty much as a Scientologist. His parents were Canadian and they were Scientologists in Canada, and he knew how to work the system really well. So such a great story. I love this. So I loved Ed Brewer. Loved him.
Everybody did.
I know. He was such a character. And he had this great mustache, and he had a T-shirt that said "Mustache rides 5 cents."
And he wore flip-flops. I remember he wore flip-flops everywhere. He was very casual.
So he knew how to work the system really well. So what he did we had to fly to England, the four of us, as the missionaries, and he sent the CSW, the completed staff work, up to the Commodore's messengers to request our airfares and our travel expenses, because we were moving there. We weren't just going there for a short-term mission. We were moving all of our stuff, and we were going to live there.
Now, was that because the mission office worldwide the missions were under the Guardian's office at St. Hill, and that was their headquarters? So is that why they decided, well, we'll put SMI, we'll put Scientology Missions International there? Because they disbanded Mission Office Worldwide.
Well, not right away. They were still in operation.
But that was the idea. They were going to take over from,
Right. And the Mission Office Worldwide's income was from, well, they got their 10% from all the missions, but that then supported the Guardian's office.
Right.
And that was supposed to be the only income the Guardian's office got was from what the missions sent them.
Yeah, that's right. And that had been their source of income until SMI was set up. And then all the 10% went to SMI from all the missions. And that was my job, to collect all that money. And then we would pay some over to the Guardian office until such time as the Guardian office was disbanded. So, but anyway, so when Ed sent this CSW up lines to get us moved, we flew over business class, which, as as ex-Sea Org members, that's like, what? Well, what he did was he got 3 bids. That was the rule, 3 bids for airfares. And he got them from 3 different airlines. And he said, the messengers are all these young girls. They don't know from nothing. So I sent this bid they were legitimate bids, but coach in this airline was more expensive than business class in this airline. And so he sent these 3 bids, and the cheapest bid, of course, won out, but it turned out we got to fly business class. So,
well, that was smart. Good for
oh,
you.
that's what I mean. Ed knew how to work the system. He was very
Yeah.
clever. Yeah. 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 Anyway, so that was really fun. And when we got over there, we bought an old London cab as the staff car, and Ed put a seat. I don't know if you know how a London cab was set up. There was room for like 6 people in the back, and then there was a driver, and then there was an empty space next to the driver that was for luggage. Well, Ed put a seat there, so we could fit 8 people in this London cab. And used London cabs, they were required by law to be sold and retired after 10 years, and they were maintained meticulously. So this was a really cool car, and Ed and I were the only ones who drove it, and it was so fun. So until Ed passed away, we had some good times. But anyway,
where did you live in England?
We got quartered in the stables.
Oh, on the St. Hill grounds?
Yeah. I was miserable in England. I was so depressed because I'm a California girl, and the weather was so depressing.
Yes.
I knew if I stayed, I was going to die. People laugh when I say that, but literally, I thought I'm either going to get cancer or I'm going to get hit by a truck or something really bad is going to happen if I stay here, because I was so depressed. We were there 14 months. When we first went there, we went to Brighton, and we were quartered in what had been a convent, and that was miserable. The first word my 18-month-old son learned when we moved to England was cold.
It was cold.
Poor little guy.
Is Brighton on the coast?
It is.
Brighton is the southern coast. It's on the southern coast, and the beach is pebbles. It's not sand. It's like pebbles.
Yeah.
So you lived at the stables, but were your offices? Where did the Guardians? Didn't they take over the manor, or where?
No. We had our offices. The stables was big. It was big. We had our offices there, and our living quarters were there.
Okay.
There weren't that many of us. There was like, I don't know, maybe half a dozen, maybe 8 employees.
Right. But that was SMI you're talking about. Mark was asking about the Guardian's office. Yes, they were in the St. Hill Manor.
They were in the manor. Yeah.
So how did it go?
Next to quarters, but the Guardian's office had taken over the nursery where the Hubbard children used to live, and then down on the first floor there was the monkey room and other areas that had all been part of Worldwide that the Guardian's office took over.
Now, how did it go dealing with the mission office Worldwide, which was the Guardian's office, when you guys were setting up Scientology Missions International?
Well, I remember having meetings with Herbie Parkhouse, who was the Assistant Guardian for Finance Worldwide, about the 10%. And it was all very businesslike and above board. And they, at the time, I don't know if they realized their heads were on chopping blocks. They must have suspected it, because, people were going to jail, prison. And, but I certainly, call me clueless. I didn't realize we were there to take over from the Guardian office not in terms of what they were doing, but in terms of their financial subsistence. And we were all fine. And it was actually messengers who came to St. Hill to tell the Guardian office that they no longer had a job. We never did
Right.
that. Yeah.
Right. That was
There,
after you guys were already doing your thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was surprised that they disbanded the Guardian office. I
Well,
didn't
they
know
didn't
were.
really span it. They kind of just changed it over to Office of Special Affairs. And
Right.
originally anyone who'd worked in the Guardian's office was not supposed to go to Office of Special Affairs.
Yeah.
But then it was like, well, nobody knew anything about legal and intel and all that kind of stuff.
How do we
So,
infiltrate the government if no one is around to tell us?
right.
right.
And
Right.
then
So
somebody like somebody like Herbie Parkhouse, who was very much feared. You know, I remember he held court over what he controlled finance wise in the Guardian's office. He got in trouble for running the canteen at St. Hill and making a personal profit. I remember that. That was like a big deal in the dispatches that were written.
he and David Gaiman had run that canteen for years and years. I remember as a kid at St. Hill, they ran it.
Yeah.
You know, and so when that happened, I was like, how is this a big surprise?
Yeah, because Miscavige, who was running the Geo takeover, he goes, oh, they're making all this money. You know what I mean? I mean, he's blew this thing up way out of proportion, and then they just got, oh, they're criminals. They need to be gotten rid of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then David had his vitamin business selling vitamins there, Gaiman, G&G vitamins.
Right. Yeah. Well, Herbie Parkhouse was a slimy guy anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Super slime.
Basically, they were getting rid of like Jane Kember, all the different main people that were in charge of the Guardian's office who were behind Snow White, which was the raid, which was the infiltration of the U.S. government, which led to the FBI raid, which they wanted to separate Hubbard and Mary Sue. Well, they couldn't separate Mary Sue from it, but they separated Hubbard from it, so that they all went down.
Yeah.
Well, you know what was interesting? I talked to Charles Parcell, who had been the deputy guardian legal.
Yeah.
And he handled legal. And he tells me he knew nothing about the Snow White stuff that was going on because it was being done by the U.S. Guardian's office. Now Jane might have known about it, but the other deputy guardians didn't know about it.
Right.
But over in the U.S., under Henning Helt and Duke Snyder, all the criminality was going on. They were coming up with how else they could do these different things.
Yeah.
To clear LRH's name and remove bad information and replace it with good information and, stealing Xerox paper.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Well, we have reached the end here of our 1 hour on the story. Is there anything else you wanted to mention, Sandy, before we end off on this?
Well, just that Roger and I were still in SMI when the mission holder meeting happened. And then shortly after that, Miscavige started declaring mission holders suppressives and everything changed.
We'll go into that. We'll go into that into the next one, because then Roger was part of the big committee of evidence that I was a member of. And then I ended up in the RPF, and that's a whole other story. And then that's eventually led to you guys leaving, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And Sandy actually gave me a copy of that comment. So we have that for our next interview. We can show that copy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we want to thank you, Sandy, for those stories. Anyway, if you guys are interested, please subscribe to our channel. We have great stories like this, great interviews with people like Sandy, and lots of information about the history of Scientology. Just click on that subscribe button, rock slam that like button, as Janis likes to say, and we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. And then, of course, if you have any questions or comments about what we've discussed, please write them in the comment section down below. And we check them and we respond to them, and we look forward to any feedback that you might have. And then also, if you'd like to donate to our channel, you can buy us a coffee. There's a link in the description down below on the video. Just click on the link and follow the instructions, and you can donate to our channel. And then also, if you'd like to buy merchandise, at our channel, just go to the show store that's on our YouTube page, click on that, and then we have Janis's autographed books. We've got Koala Calm. We've got t-shirts like the Rock Slammer. Get your own Rock Slammer t-shirt and represent, and coffee mugs and all sorts of stuff. Just click on that stuff. And again, we appreciate the support from everybody on that. Okay, is there anything else you guys would like to talk about or mention before we end off here?
Just looking forward to the next one, Sandy.
Great. Me too.
Hey, thanks for your time, Sandy. We appreciate it. And until next time, everybody, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.